Hello. Welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's podcast, English Listening Practice podcast topic name is Think Smart, Speak Fluent.
Welcome back to the deep dive. This is where we dig into big ideas and hopefully make them really clear and useful for you. Today, we're jumping into something that honestly probably drives a lot of language learners crazy. You know that feeling. Your brain's just racing, trying to translate everything word for word from your own language into English before you can even open your mouth. And what happens? You get these jumbled sentences, weird pauses.
Or you just freeze, completely lose track of the conversation. It's incredibly frustrating.
It really is. And that's what we're tackling head on today.
Right. That little lag time, that hesitation, that's often the gap between just knowing the words and actually sounding fluent, sounding natural and spontaneous, that whole internal translation detour. That's the bottleneck we want to help you get rid of.
For sure. So our goal, our mission in this deep dive is to introduce you to a pretty different way of thinking about fluency. It's less about memorizing lists.
Yeah, much less about endless grammar charts. And much more about training your brain. We're calling it Think Smart, Speak Fluent, or TSSF for short. We've looked at the core ideas, the thinking behind it, some cognitive science, practical tips, and some really inspiring stories too.
The aim is to give you a kind of roadmap, help you build that mental quickness you need to just think and speak directly in English. Cut out that middleman.
And this isn't just some random idea, right? This lines up with how experts see language working.
Oh, definitely. Research in cognitive linguistics, it pretty much confirms this. Fluent speakers, they aren't constantly translating in their heads. They're processing the meaning, the idea, directly in whatever language they're using at that moment.
So if they're speaking English, they're thinking the concept in English.
That's it. And when you adopt this Think Smart approach, you're actually taking a load off your brain, cognitively speaking. It frees things up, lets the words flow more naturally, less mental traffic jam.
That makes so much sense. It's not about being born with a language gift or something.
Not at all. It's about optimizing a mental process, making it more efficient.
Which is why this idea is catching on, right? Because it targets that spontaneity, that ability to just talk without overthinking.
Exactly. It's the mental prep you need for real conversations, the fast ones, the important ones.
Okay, so let's dig into this core philosophy. Think smart, speak fluent. We've kind of hinted at it, but the usual way, memorize vocab lists, learn grammar rules in isolation, often leaves people stuck. They get caught in this translation loop.
You want to say something simple like, I need bread. Your brain goes, okay, native language thought first, then search for the English words, then try to assemble them according to grammar rules, then speak.
That's way too many steps for a normal conversation.
It is, and it's fundamentally flawed for speaking in real time. Cognitive psychologists talk about switch cost.
Switch cost.
Yeah, every time your brain has to jump between frames from the idea in your native language to finding the English words and structure, it eats up mental energy. It taxes your working memory.
Oh, okay. So you're trying to hold the meaning, find the word, and remember the grammar all at once.
Spot on. The system gets overloaded. And that's when you hesitate, you stumble, you feel tongue-tied.
And that hesitation, it just feeds the anxiety, doesn't it? It makes you even more nervous next time.
It's a vicious cycle.
So smart thinking aims to break that cycle by creating a direct link, like idea straight to English speech.
That's the goal, a direct, more automated mental pathway.
But hang on, some people might be thinking, don't I need translation just to learn the words in the first place? What's the difference between using it to learn and using it to speak?
That's a really important distinction. Translation is okay, maybe even helpful. When you first encounter a new word, it gives you a quick hook, a basic meaning. But the problem comes when that translation becomes your only way of accessing the word during speech. It becomes a crutch.
Right.
Smart thinking is about building connections within English itself. So instead of defining, say, resilience only by its equivalent in your language, you learn to define it using other English words you already know, like the ability to bounce back from difficulty.
Ah, I see. You're building the network inside English.
Precisely. You're owning the concept in English, not just borrowing a translation.
Okay, so the cognitive benefit is huge then. You're taking that strain off your working memory.
Definitely. Less mental juggling. And that leads directly to real-world results. More confidence, way less anxiety about speaking.
And feeling ready for those unexpected conversations, right? Like a job interview or just chatting with someone new.
That's it. Being ready to respond spontaneously.
Got it. So this deep dive, we're structuring it around making that shift. Phase 1 is training the brain, think smart.
And phase 2 is about getting it out, speak fluent. making that thinking audible and smooth.
Okay, let's kick off phase one, thinking smart. This is really about reprogramming that inner voice, isn't it?
Yeah, think of it like upgrading your brain's software so it runs English directly without needing that translation layer.
So what's the first step in this upgrade? Hashtag tag of sobriety. Immerse yourself in monolingual thinking exercises.
The absolute cornerstone, the most crucial thing, is to consciously force your brain to operate only in English for short, focused periods.
Only English. No native language allowed.
None. We recommend setting aside dedicated time blocks, maybe just 10 or 15 minutes a day to start.
Why short blocks? Why not just try and think in English all the time?
Because trying to do it all day is just exhausting. You'll burn out and likely slip back into old habits. These short blocks are like intense mental workouts.
Okay, a mental sprint. So what do you do in those 10-15 minutes?
You practice think aloud sessions. You
Yeah.
basically narrate your world internally or even whisper it. Describe what's around you, what you're doing, how you're feeling, and the golden rule. If you don't know a word, you must try to describe it or talk around it using other English words. No cheating with translation.
Can you give an example? Like, how simple should someone start?
Start super simple. Look around your room. Okay, the wall is white. There's a window. Outside, it looks cloudy.
Just basic observation.
Exactly. Then gradually build up. Move from this coffee is hot to maybe I find the deadlines actually motivate me. Expressing opinions, more abstract thoughts.
And journaling helps here too.
Immensely. Writing your thoughts down, just letting them flow stream of consciousness style in English helps solidify those patterns without the pressure of speaking instantly.
Okay, and you mentioned a trick involving visual association. Sticky notes everywhere.
Ah, yes, the sticky note method. It sounds simple, but it's powerful for creating those direct links. You label everyday objects, the kettle, the microwave, the door. When you see the object, your brain starts to automatically retrieve the English word, bypassing the translation step.
So instead of seeing the kettle, thinking the word in my language, then thinking kettle.
You just see it and boom, kettle comes to mind directly. It builds that immediate connection.
So applying that, if I'm planning my day, instead of thinking I need to go buy milk in my native tongue.
You visualize the supermarket, maybe the milk aisle, and think directly.
Okay.
Must remember to pick up some milk later. Anchor the thought in the English context.
Got it. I heard about someone who said even their internal arguments started happening in English after doing this consistently.
That's a huge milestone. When your inner debates, those complex back and forth, start happening naturally in English, you know you've shifted from translating to truly thinking in the language. That's the essence of it. Hashtag B. Expand vocabulary through contextual clustering.
Okay, so thinking directly in English needs fuel, right? It needs the actual words and phrases, but you're saying isolated words aren't enough.
Right. Just memorizing single words off a list is inefficient. They tend to disappear when you're under pressure. Smart thinking thrives on language that's connected, that comes in natural clusters.
Clusters, you mean like learning phrases instead of single words?
Exactly. We call them chunks. These are groups of words that native speakers use all the time, often without even thinking about the grammar. Things like make a decision, take a break, on the other hand.
Ah, okay. Because you wouldn't usually say do a decision or have a break.
Precisely. If you learn take and break separately, your brain has to work to put them together correctly each time. But if you learn take a break as one single unit,
Retrieval is faster.
much faster. You're pulling out maybe 3 or 4 words with the same mental effort it takes to retrieve one. It speeds everything up.
That makes a big difference in fluency. So how do we find and learn these chunks effectively?
Group them by topic or theme. Learning about food. Learn action chunks. Chop the vegetables. Stir the sauce. Bake a cake. Talking about feelings. Feeling under the weather, over the moon, a bit down.
So context is key.
Absolutely. And use spaced repetition apps, but don't just review the chunk itself. Review it with an example sentence, maybe even a picture, to lock in the meaning and usage.
And reading actively, like hunting for these chunks.
Yes. When you read articles, watch movies with subtitles, actively look for these recurring word combinations. See how they're used naturally.
And you mentioned mind maps, linking chunks to personal memories.
That's a great trick to make them stickier. Connect a new chunk, say an idiom like bite the bullet, to a specific time you had to do something difficult. That personal link makes it much easier to recall later.
I remember hearing about a Spanish speaker who really cracked English fluency this way.
Yeah, instead of trying to find a perfect translation for a complex Spanish phrase like, lo pasé por alto.
Which means something like, I overlooked it.
Right. Instead of that translation step, they just learned the English chunk, I overlooked the detail, or I missed that point. Direct thinking in the English structure. It bypasses all that complex grammar juggling. #CT. Practice mental rehearsal for real scenarios.
Great. This next one sounds really practical. Mental rehearsal, like practicing conversations in your head before they happen.
Exactly. It's the power of anticipation. You visualize upcoming situations, a meeting, a presentation, even just a casual chat, and you mentally run through how you might respond.
Especially useful for those high-pressure moments, I guess.
Definitely. If you know you've got a job interview, don't wait until you're in the chair. Mentally rehearse potential questions and your answers. Ask yourself, what are they likely to ask me about my experience? Then formulate a possible answer directly in English. Well, in my previous role, I was responsible for leading cross-functional teams on projects like X and Y.
But wouldn't that make you sound robotic, like you're reading a script?
That's a fair concern. The key is not to memorize word-for-word scripts, but to have key phrases, core ideas, and useful structures ready to go. Think of them as building blocks. And this mental practice is the perfect time to weave in those connectors and transition words we talked about. Actually, in addition, however, to be honest, they add flow.
Right, they make it sound more natural, less like a list of pre-planned sentences.
And crucially, try to bridge the gap between just thinking the response and actually saying it.
Yeah.
Practice saying the rehearsed lines out loud, even if you're just whispering. It connects the thought to the physical act of speaking. It activates the muscle memory.
So prepping for that interview again, instead of just thinking about your strengths.
You mentally formulate and maybe even whisper key strengths. Definitely adaptability and strong problem-solving skills, for example. Thinking it through in the target language primes the pump.
It gets rid of that delay where you're translating the concept of strength first.
That's it. Consistent rehearsal makes the English articulation much more automatic when the pressure's on. #D. Minimize translation dependencies.
This sounds like the tough love part, actively breaking that habit of relying on translation.
It requires discipline, no doubt about it. The biggest step here is to, as much as possible, ban bilingual dictionaries during your active thinking or speaking practice.
Really? Ban them? What do you use instead?
Monolingual dictionaries, English to English. When you look up a word and the definition is also in English, you're forced to understand it using the English you already know.
Reinforcing that internal network again.
Exactly. It strengthens the connections within English rather than constantly creating detours back to your native language.
But what if you genuinely get stuck? Like you need a word, say ambiguous, and the monolingual definition is confusing. You can't just stop talking.
That's where paraphrasing comes in. Circumlocution. You talk around the word you don't know.
So for ambiguous, you might say.
You might say it means something that's not clear, or it could be understood in more than one way. Describe its meaning or function.
That skill itself, being able to paraphrase on the fly, seems really important for fluency.
It's a hallmark of advanced speakers. They rarely just stop cold. They find another way to express the idea. It keeps the conversation flowing.
So track how often you fall back on translation.
Yeah, be conscious of it. Maybe even keep a little note. Okay, today during my thinking practice, my brain jumped back to my native language 5 times. Then actively try to reduce that number.
And the simple trick, changing phone language.
It sounds basic, but changing your phone, your computer, your social media settings to English creates constant low-level exposure. It subtly pushes your brain to operate in English more often as the default. #Kordalik Incorporate mindfulness for focused thinking.
Okay, mindfulness and language learning. That might seem like an odd pairing to some people. Isn't fluency about speed?
It's about controlled speed, and control comes from focus. Mindfulness helps cultivate that focus. When you're anxious or your mind is scattered, language processing suffers badly.
So less anxiety means clearer thinking.
Definitely. Anxiety triggers that fight or flight response, and complex things like language production often shut down. We actually suggest using meditation apps, specifically those with guided sessions in English.
So you're practicing focus and getting English input simultaneously.
Exactly. You're training your mind to stay calm and centered while processing the target language.
It's about dedicated mental space too, right? Not trying to think in English while juggling 5 other tasks.
For sure. Avoid multitasking during these dedicated thinking practice times. Give it your full attention. And another interesting technique is pairing language thinking with simple physical activity, like walking.
How does that help?
It seems to ground the language practice in the physical world. Makes it feel less abstract, less like a purely academic exercise. Thinking in English while going for a walk can feel quite natural.
And using positive self-talk in English, like affirmations.
Yeah, simple things like mentally repeating, I am speaking clearly and confidently, or my thoughts are flowing smoothly in English. It sounds a bit cheesy maybe, but it builds mental resilience.
It primes your brain to feel capable, which helps prevent that panic when a conversation gets challenging.
That foundational calm is really what allows the smart thinking to translate into fluent speaking. Okay, so we've done the internal work, the think smart phase. Now, how do we get that smooth internal processing to come out of our mouths effectively? This is phase 2, speak fluent.
Right. Making the thinking audible and natural. #A. Embrace the 70% rule for imperfect fluency. This one feels really important. You call it the 70% rule. Can you explain that?
It's about letting go of perfectionism, which is often the biggest barrier to actually speaking. The rule is, if you feel about 70% confident you can get your meaning across, even if the grammar is imperfect, just say it.
Wow, only 70%. That feels liberating.
It should, because the goal, especially initially, has to be communication, not grammatical perfection. Fluency is about flow first. Accuracy can be refined later.
So don't wait until you're 100% sure.
Absolutely not. Waiting for 100% often means saying nothing at all. Prioritize getting the message out.
Okay, so how do you handle pauses then? If you're not 100% sure, you might hesitate.
Use fillers strategically, not just endless ums and but phrases that buy you thinking time while keeping the floor. Things like, let me think about that for a second. Or, that's a good point. How should I put this?
Smart fillers. Okay. And simplifying ideas.
Yes. If you have a really complex thought, don't try to translate it perfectly in one go. Break it down. Say the core idea in simple terms first. Then add detail if you need to.
And practice in safe spaces, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Use language exchange apps, talk to patient partners, find low-stakes environments where mistakes are okay. A great trick here is timed free speaking. Set a timer for, say, 2 minutes and just talk about anything. The rule is, no stopping to correct yourself until the timer goes off.
Just keep talking, build momentum.
Exactly. It trains your brain to keep going. Think about it. It's better to say, I think maybe climate change problem for world and keep the conversation going than to freeze trying to construct the perfect sentence about environmental policy. Momentum is key. #TAG_B. Leverage connectors and fillers for smooth flow.
You mentioned connectors earlier for thinking, but they're crucial for speaking too, right? For making speech sound smooth and logical.
Absolutely essential. They're the glue that holds ideas together.
Yeah.
Mastering a core set of transition words and phrases makes your speech sound much more coherent and sophisticated.
Which ones are most important?
Think about their function. To add information. Furthermore, in addition, moreover, to show contrast. However, on the other hand, conversely, on the flip side, to show cause-effect. Therefore, as a result, consequently.
So learning these helps structure your spoken thoughts.
Tremendously. Practice linking ideas with them. Don't just say, I like hiking, it's good exercise. Try. I really enjoy hiking, primarily because it's fantastic exercise. Furthermore, it allows me to connect with nature.
It forces you to think about how the ideas relate.
And it makes you sound more organized. Listen actively to native speakers. How do they transition between points in a discussion or presentation? Notice the words they use.
And role-playing debates. That sounds intense.
It is, but it's great practice. Debating forces you to use those connectors dynamically, responding quickly to arguments, agreeing, disagreeing, adding points. It moves you beyond just using basic and but.
What about that trick, the connector cheat sheet?
Simple, but effective. Keep a list of useful connectors handy during practice. Having them visually available frees up your brain to focus on what you want to say, knowing you have the structural words ready. #TAG_C. Record and refine your output.
Okay, this one involves facing the music, doesn't it? Recording yourself speaking.
It can feel awkward at first, but self-feedback is incredibly powerful. You simply can't fix problems you're not aware of.
So the tip is to record yourself regularly, even just short bits.
Yeah, maybe just a 2-minute summary of your day or your thoughts on an article you read, and this is key, listen back critically.
What should you listen for? Not just grammar mistakes.
Grammar is part of it, but focus more on flow, clarity, hesitation points. Crucially, listen for rhythm and intonation. Are you stressing the important words? Does it sound like natural English speech?
That's where shadowing comes in handy again, right? Comparing yourself to a model.
Perfect application. Shadow a short clip from a podcast or speech. Record yourself doing it. Then immediately play the original and your version back to back. The differences in rhythm and stress will jump out at you.
And transcribing, writing down what you actually said.
Very useful. If you listen back and hear a section where you really struggled or hesitated, transcribe it word for word. Then rewrite that section to make it smoother, clearer, more fluent. It connects the thinking fix to the speaking fix.
Are there tools that can help with this? AI, maybe?
Yes, definitely. There are AI tools now that give you pretty good feedback on pronunciation, pace, and even rhythm. It's a quick way to get some objective critique.
It helps you go from maybe a flat, my day was very busy, to something more natural and vivid, like, oh, today was just hectic, meetings pretty much back to back all day. Recording helps you spot those opportunities for improvement. Hashtag D. Engage in output-focused immersion.
So we've practiced thinking, we've practiced speaking in controlled ways. Now we need to pressure test it. You need situations where you have to speak.
Output-focused immersion, so not just passively listening or reading.
Right. The key is putting yourself in environments where speaking English is necessary, not optional.
Like joining specific clubs or groups.
Exactly. Join a debate club, a book club that discusses in English, a language exchange meetup where conversation is the main activity. If speaking is optional, it's too easy to just sit back and listen.
What are some specific activities within this?
We mentioned debating, great for quick thinking and using connectors. Another one is narrating videos in real time.
Narrating videos, how does that work?
You play a short video clip, maybe a travel vlog or a documentary with the sound off, and you describe what's happening as you see it. Okay, now he's walking down a busy street. Seems to be looking for something. It forces immediate visual to verbal processing.
That sounds challenging but useful. And volunteering for presentations.
Builds confidence in more formal settings. Even practicing a short presentation for a small, friendly group helps manage nerves and structure thoughts for public speaking. A really practical everyday strategy is summarizing news articles aloud. Read an article, then put it away and immediately try to explain the main points out loud in your own words.
So you're processing, structuring, and speaking spontaneously.
That's the trifecta. You're not just reciting, you're actively thinking and producing language on the spot.
Okay, we've got the thinking phase and the speaking phase. How do we really weave these together so they boost each other, create some synergy?
Good question. It's about combining the strategies. One powerful combo is shadowing with thought preparation.
How does that differ from regular shadowing?
Before you shadow a piece of audio, say a TED Talk clip about innovation, you take a minute to mentally brainstorm key phrases related to that topic in English. Think, pushing boundaries, disruptive technology, the future of.
So you're priming your brain with relevant concepts before you hear and repeat them.
Exactly. It makes the shadowing much more meaningful and helps the phrases stick because you've already activated those concepts in your mind.
That's smart. What's another integrated practice?
Daily routines with dual focus. As you go about simple daily tasks, making coffee, getting dressed, you narrate them internally or aloud, but you also consciously think ahead about the structure you'll use.
So think, I need caffeine. Then say, okay, I'm going to make a strong coffee now because I didn't sleep well.
Precisely. It creates this tight loop between the mental prep and the immediate verbal output. Makes it a habit.
And for group interactions, like language meetups.
Group discussions with prep. Don't just show up cold. If you know the potential topics, spend a few minutes beforehand brainstorming ideas and key phrases using mind maps or simple notes in English.
So you walk in mentally warmed up.
Right. Having those ideas in some language preloaded means your contributions will likely be much smoother and more confident, reducing those awkward moments. #B. Tackling common roadblocks.
Of course, the path isn't always smooth. People hit roadblocks. Let's talk about common ones. What about hitting a plateau, that feeling of just not improving anymore?
Plateaus are totally normal. The key is usually to shake things up. If your current routine feels stale, say, reading news articles, switch to something completely different. Try learning song lyrics in English. Try translating a poem just for fun. Watch a type of movie you normally wouldn't. Introduce novelty.
Okay, variety is the spice of fluency life. What about anxiety? The fear of making mistakes.
Anxiety is huge. The solution is gradual exposure. Start incredibly small. Talk to yourself, record yourself, then find one very safe, supportive person to talk to. Then maybe a small, friendly group. You build tolerance step by step. Don't jump straight into a high-pressure situation. Rehearse mentally. Use the 70% rule. Desensitize yourself gradually.
Makes sense. What if the problem is just time shortage? People are busy.
Micro practices. Forget needing 2-hour study blocks. Grab moments. Think in English while you're commuting, waiting for the kettle to boil, walking the dog. Turn dead time into mini language labs. 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. It all adds up.
And keeping motivation up. It can dip over time.
2 things mainly. Track your progress and find community. Keep a simple journal of what you practiced or learned. Seeing how far you've come, even small steps, is motivating. And join an online group or find a language partner. Having accountability and shared experience helps immensely.
And for those pushing further, advanced exploration.
Yeah, if you're feeling comfortable, challenge yourself with nuances. Explore regional dialects, learn some current slang, try understanding fast-paced comedy. It forces your brain to adapt and keeps the learning process exciting. #tag essential resources, the toolkit.
Okay, let's point people towards some concrete tools and resources that align with this TSSF approach. You mentioned a podcast earlier.
Yes. For general communication skills that feed into fluency, Think Fast Talk Smart offers great insights. And for more direct TSSF strategies, resources associated with easy English talk seem relevant.
What about apps?
Duolingo can be useful, but specifically focus on learning phrases in chunks, not just isolated words. And for finding practice partners and tutors, especially those who understand conversational practice, italki is a popular platform.
Any key books?
The concepts in Fluent Forever by Gabriel Weiner align well with the idea of building internal connections and thinking directly in the language.
And online communities?
Reddit has a very active community under language learning. You can find tips, share struggles, and get advice from fellow learners. Great for motivation too.
And YouTube.
Loads of resources there. Channels like LEP English, Luke's English Podcast, provide fantastic listening and shadowing material with transcripts. And channels focused on habit building for fluency, like Kunzi's, often emphasize daily implementation of these kinds of thinking strategies.
Theory and tips are great, but stories really bring it home. Let's talk about some real people who use these kinds of think smart approaches to transform their fluency. #A, Luca's Polyglot Pivot, Rome to Global Fluency.
Let's start with Luca Lampariello. He talks about being a teenager in Rome, just completely freezing up in English class. Terrified. He knew the words, but he was stuck in that translation loop. Going abroad meant pointing at menus because he couldn't speak.
That sounds really demoralizing. What changed for him?
It wasn't more grammar rules. It was immersion through reading specifically, English comics and graphic novels. He got absorbed in the stories, and the characters' dialogue started to become his internal voice. He was thinking in English narratives.
So he bypassed translation by adopting the characters' voices.
In a way, yes. And he actively practiced, too, talking to himself in the mirror, having imaginary debates just to get conversational phrases flowing naturally. When he finally did an exchange in the US, he was initially overwhelmed by the speed and slang.
What did he do then?
He used a clever mental trick. He'd ask himself, how would a character from that American TV show I like respond here? He used pop culture references as mental anchors to generate English directly.
That's brilliant. So he went from pointing at menus
to chatting confidently with native speakers.
Yeah.
And now he speaks, 14 languages? His big takeaway is about internalizing the language actively and just having the courage to speak, even imperfectly. #PTAG Robbie's Irish Odyssey. Warehouse to podcast power.
Okay, how about Robbie Coukers? His story starts differently, arriving in Ireland with very little money and broken English.
Yeah, 2004 in Dublin. He got a warehouse job, but felt totally isolated because he couldn't keep up with the fast Irish accent and banter. He missed out on opportunities because his communication skills held him back.
What was his initial approach to learning?
The traditional route dictionaries, grammar books, he learned the rules, but he said it didn't translate into actual speaking ability. His light bulb moment came later, working in a call center. He realized books aren't real-life conversation.
So he needed practical, contextual language.
Exactly. He shifted his focus completely, started intensely shadowing TV soap operas in his tiny apartment, mimicking the rhythm, the intonation, the common phrases, the chunks.
Just repeating what he heard.
Over and over.
Yeah.
Cementing those natural patterns. And he remembers the breakthrough moment, his first work call where the English just flowed. He was nervous, but it came out smoothly, without that painful hesitation.
And now he runs his own language learning platform.
Right. His journey really highlights ditching the over-reliance on translation and focusing on thinking and speaking in context. #See Maria's Portuguese passion. Mirror babble to master's podium.
Let's talk about Maria from Lisbon. Her starting point was interesting, practicing by herself, talking to her reflection.
Yeah, she'd invent stories, feel quite confident talking to the mirror. But then, faced with her actual tutor, she'd clam up, crippled by shyness.
How did she bridge that gap between private practice and real interaction?
Massive input and integration. She reportedly read over 1,000 books in English. She lived in those worlds. Dickens' London felt real to her. English wasn't just study. It was an escape, a passion.
So immersion through reading was key.
Huge. Plus, constant listening podcasts on her commutes. She saturated her daily life with English until it felt completely natural to think in it, to narrate her day in it.
And the payoff.
A defining moment was during her master's degree seminar in Edinburgh. She had to present complex ideas. Instead of freezing like she might have before, she stood at the podium and delivered her points clearly, confidently, with a steady voice.
Wow, from shy mirror practice to academic presentation.
It really shows how embedding that thinking practice joyfully and persistently into everyday life can lead to incredible results. #D snapshots of resilience. Hadar's heroes and Reddit.
And there are quicker transformations too, right? Like the examples from Hadar Shemesh's students.
Oh yeah, some really inspiring ones. Diana, who was so paralyzed by fear, she relied on Zoom captions, practiced output and mindset shifts until she was confidently handling job interviews in English and getting offers.
Amazing. And Charmin.
Charmin struggled with rushing her words in meetings, feeling out of control. She worked specifically on rhythm, pausing, and controlling her pace through output practice, which totally changed her professional communication. Then Carolina used metronome drills for timing to nail high-stakes executive speeches.
It shows how targeted practice works. And we see these stories online too, like on Reddit.
All the time. People like Alicia, who started serious immersion in her 30s, binged the show Friends to absorb natural conversation, and within a couple of years was fluently debating complex topics.
Proof that it's not just about starting young.
Not at all. Or Paco, who started learning in his 60s. He used the pandemic lockdown period as an opportunity for intense study, focused on thinking in the language, and proved that age is no barrier to achieving conversational fluency with the right mindset and strategies. #outro.
So, listening to all this, you really do have a comprehensive toolkit now. We've gone from the foundational ideas, like setting those mental traps with sticky notes and dedicating time for monolingual thinking,
All the way through to practical speaking strategies like that 70% rule, giving yourself permission to communicate imperfectly and using shadowing effectively for rhythm and flow.
It's a whole system for rewiring how you approach speaking English.
It really is. And the final message, echoing the stories of Luca, Robbie, Maria, and all the others, is simple. Start now. Start small, but be consistent. Pick just one thing from today's discussion. Maybe it's a 10-minute think aloud session during your walk tomorrow. Maybe it's labeling 5 things in your kitchen. Just start.
Because that fluent future really depends on building these habits, right? Being persistent, getting feedback, and not giving up when it feels tough.
That's the path. Consistency and smart practice.
Okay. If you found this deep dive into thinking smart and speaking fluent helpful, and maybe you know someone else who's struggling with that translation barrier, please do share this discussion with them. Let them know about it.
And maybe a final thought to leave you with, something to chew on as you apply these ideas. If fluent language use is truly about thinking directly, about conceptualization rather than translation, what does that mean for how we view traditional grammar rules? What assumptions about needing to know every rule perfectly might we need to let go of to really free our minds to speak spontaneously?
That's a deep one to ponder. Food for thought. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel.